What's up, guys? This is Kephas.
How's it going, everybody? We are currently in the midnight beta, and first off, I'd like to apologize if I sound like I just smoked an entire pack of cigarettes. It's because I just came out of Taekwondo. It's very cold and my asthma is kicking my butt. So my voice might be wrecked and I may not sound like the most enthusiastic person right now, because if I were, I'd probably be coughing in your ear every 15 seconds, and I don't want to do that. So just know that I am very excited. I'm very happy to be here, and we're going to cover something I think that'll be kind of fun today. Definitely something that's been requested. I've had a lot of people ask me what my thoughts are about the various class changes and how the single button assistant's working. Is it going to be good in midnight? So we're going to try and cover some of that today. We'll go over a couple classes. Obviously, we're not going to go over all of them because there are a lot of classes. That would be a really long video. And because there are so many classes, I personally have not had the time to go over every single one of them. So there's a lot of information out there on all the class changes, but we'll just go over a handful and see how things work. So before we actually dive into a class, one of the cool changes that I want to show you is, and this is actually going to go live, I believe, in patch 11.2.7. So if you go into options, so if you turn this on, this functionality has been extended to the single button assistant, and you obviously can't see me, but I'm not tapping the button anymore. I'm simply holding it down and it's working. So this is a fantastic change. I think a lot of people will really appreciate this one. And this one actually goes live a lot sooner than I even knew. I didn't even know this was happening until recently. So this is something I wanted to show and I'm very excited about. So that's one of the big things. Now let's go ahead and look at some of the classes. And we're going to start, as always, with Ret Paladin. And I apologize, you guys. I'm sure if you have actually watched a lot of my videos, you've probably gotten sick and tired of me covering Ret Paladins all the time. It's always the one I start with. It's one that I feature a lot. And it's simply because it's the class that I know the most. I've been playing Ret since, I don't know, Wrath. So it's been my main for a very, very long time, and it's just the class that I'm the most familiar with. So we'll start with Ret, and then we'll look at a few others, and it's actually kind of funny. I think people are going to have a lot of mixed feelings about, how much simpler a lot of classes look and feel. So I think Ret might even be one of the simplest classes in Midnight. A lot of the abilities have been folded into each other, so you don't have as many buttons to press. Your cooldown window is a lot easier to manage. I think Wowhead has a survival guide for every single class and spec, and you can see all the changes. It was actually very helpful for me, and it definitely makes it a lot more hopeful for me, looking at a lot of these classes and just being able to play them. So I think that's awesome. And I think that with Ret and with a lot of classes, if I didn't have vision issues and I could easily track cooldowns, I don't think I would use the single button assistant to play Ret or a lot of the specs, because the buttons are a lot more manageable. It's a lot easier to handle the fewer spells that you have now, and I just think it's definitely going to be easier for people to play the game. Less of a cognitive load, less complexity, and hopefully, as long as the rest of the game is engaging, I think it'll be great. So I mean that in a good way. I don't think of it so much as dumbing it down. I think of it as making it more manageable, especially without add-ons, and I think that can be a good thing. So if you make the encounters more challenging, then a simpler rotation is still going to become more challenging because you're tracking more things, right? So that's kind of my thought process. But anyway, let's go ahead and look at what's changed here, right? Because wow. So the first thing, and I apologize if I move away from the microphone so I can read, I'm very nearsighted. Hammer of Wrath is gone as a spell, and it will replace Judgment when it becomes activated. Divine Hammers is being folded into Divine Toll, so you don't have that button anymore. And then of course you still have Avenging Wrath, and as before, that is folded into Wake of Ashes. So that's another one. And then you still have the option between Templar Strikes and Crusading Strikes. I actually think they brought Crusading Strikes back. I think it was gone. I don't know, they just got a lot of feedback. I think a lot of people prefer having that passive, so that's something else as well. That can make things easier. And then as you can see here, now I don't know what's meta. Obviously it's beta, things are changing all the time. Anyways, I'm just using the starter build that they provided, and execution sentence is kind of an option now, so there's another path you can go. You don't have to take execution sentence and follow that road if you don't want to. So there's that as well. I'm sure I imagine execution sentence will be meta or something, but either way, you don't have to take it if you don't want to. And then of course you have your hero talents, which you have a few more now, and there's different things to look into, but overall it's basically the same. You're gonna use Hammer of Light after you use Wake of Ashes, and it basically works the exact same way. So that's, you know, not so bad at all, and that's pretty easy to manage. But if you don't want to have to manage that, you can also go to the more passive Herald of the Sun tree. And so as you can see, it's a lot simpler. And if we actually look at the spells we have, our spell book, we can go up here and look at the single button assistant and see everything that the single button assistant uses. Now you might look at this and think, well, it doesn't really use that much. No, this is your entire rotation, you guys. That's basically it, because Judgment changes into Hammer of Wrath. And of course, Divine Toll, you know, does Divine Hammers. Wake of Ashes turns into Hammer of Light. So you have a lot of abilities that either have more functionality or they simply transform into other abilities. And I think that's kind of interesting. It's a neat way to do things because it does remove button bloat. Hammer of Light is technically a separate spell from Wake of Ashes. It works completely different, but it just shares the button. I think that's a really useful way to make buttons easier to manage, in my opinion, especially when it's an ability that you're not using all the time. So that definitely helps. And like I said, if I could easily track, you know, cooldowns, I don't think I would need to use the single button assistant to play this class, because there really are, I mean, there's 6 buttons here. That's crazy. I think that's a lot more manageable. With Ret Paladin, you have a class here that covers everything. You don't have to macro anything. You don't have to worry about, you know, no channeling commands. You don't have to have any extra abilities that aren't being used, at least when it comes to your core rotation, because even your cooldown, Avenging Wrath, is being covered through Wake of Ashes. So I mean, everything's covered here basically like it is in live, but actually just using it like I was just now doing it, it feels a lot more smooth, you know, because you're not like having to worry about divine hammers anymore. It's not, you know, wasting your holy power anymore. So that's no longer a big deal. It's just keeping everything on cooldown and spending your holy power. It's pretty straightforward, and yeah, it seems to be working pretty well. So there's a little bit of downtime, and maybe that's what having Templar Strikes can help. It does manage Templar Strikes as well, so you can go that route if you want to, but just whatever you want to do is fine. And yeah, it feels a lot more smooth. I think it's functioning a lot better, and it's just overall going to be a lot easier and feel a little bit nicer to play Ret, whether you're using the single button assistant or not. So yeah, I think that if you're someone, there's no shame if you choose to use it, but I think there's going to be a lot fewer people that feel like they absolutely have to now. And I think there'll be more people that are just kind of like, you know what, I don't need this. This is a very manageable class for me. So I think that's a good thing. You know, unfortunately, disabled people like me might still need to use it, but you know, for everybody else, you know, maybe not so much. So I think that's really cool. But anyway, that's Ret Paladin. So now we're looking at the Beast Mastery Hunter, and this is actually one of the classes that made me want to make this video, because I genuinely laughed at just when I looked at what Beast Mastery actually does. It feels very much like, I don't know, early Demon Hunter. The Beast Mastery has always had this reputation for being a super easy class, and yeah, it's crazy how really just how few abilities you have. Like I said, there's going to be some mixed feelings here. I'm not saying it's not fun by any means, but it's definitely simple, I would say. You no longer have Kill Shot. You no longer have Explosive Shot. You do have Black Arrow now, and now it's just a standalone button. You still have Pack Leader, which, you know, might be a little bit easier, I guess, to manage because it's one less button, which maybe you want more buttons. You'll see what I mean. But then of course you still have Kill Command. You still have Barbed Shot, which it's a lot easier. You're not really having to stack Frenzy anymore. You're just doing more damage, and it's very straightforward. Of course, you still have Cobra Shot. Essentially, it will reduce the cooldown of your other shots. That's basically how that works. So, and of course, you have Bestial Wrath still, which has a really short cooldown. Again, it's a fun ability to press, so now you just get to press it more often. And then, of course, you have this new ability, which it's called Wild Thrash. Basically, it works like multi-shot. It goes into Beast Cleave, and use it to do Beast Cleave, basically is how I read it, but it's just more focused on what your pet does. It also has an 8-second cooldown, and it does use focus. that's pretty much it. You don't have Call of the Wild anymore. There's nothing really else to add to this. But I laughed when I saw the actual tooltip because you have 6 buttons here, and 2 of them are pet management. So one's for Call Pet 1 and one's for Revive Pet. And aside that, you have 4 buttons. That's it. So you have Kill Command, Cobra Shot, Bestial Wrath, and Barb Shot. That's basically your core rotation. Now, if you'll notice though, it's funny, but it's also kind of weird because there's a lack of 2 key abilities. And one of those is Wild Thrash. I don't know why that's not included here. It's very strange. I don't know what the deal is. It really needs to be included because it does use focus, and it's definitely something that you're going to need to use. So that's a little bit weird. And it also doesn't use Black Arrow. So that's another one that doesn't make sense. I don't know why those aren't used. So I'm hoping that it's a problem, like just like a bug, or they just need to fine tune it. But there are some classes in this, like this, that just have a lot of abilities that aren't included that really ought to be included. They're not in the tooltip and they're just not used. So if you're using this, it just covers part of your rotation. I mean, it's funny. It's a simple, small rotation, but still it is kind of weird that those 2 aren't included. So if this is what goes live, then you'd have to manage those separately. I guess if you don't want to handle Black Arrow, just don't go Dark Ranger. And then just, I don't know, use Wild Thrash every 8 seconds, I guess. But that can be a problem though, because the thing uses Cobra Shot, and yeah, and that can definitely mean that, you know, you don't have enough focus, I guess. I don't know. But either way, that's something to look into, and we'll see how that goes. But it's still, this is definitely one of those classes, again, kind of like Ret, where you may not feel like you need to use the single button assistant if you have no real need for it, I guess. Like if you can handle things, you don't have a disability or something, like, you know, you might not feel super pressed with this rotation. But either way, we can go up here and we can go ahead and just start doing it. As you can see, yeah, Bestial Wrath is fine. That's weird. I don't know why it's not, they're not included, but hopefully they fix that. And I don't know how many classes would be in this situation, but it's definitely something to remember. And that's basically Beast Mastery Hunter. Very simple, very straightforward. And I think to a lot of people that may be awesome. I mean, it's Beast Mastery. It's always been a more simple, straightforward class, but it also could be something that people point to and say, look at how much they dumbed the game down. So it's really funny. Like to me, it's really funny because it really is really straightforward. But anyway, let's go ahead and move on to the next class. So now we're looking at Elemental Shaman, and I've kind of rushed through this tree a little bit because it's been a while and I'm not as super familiar with this one, but I just kind of messed around. I'm sure my build absolutely sucks. So let's go ahead and look at the single button assistant, and we can kind of see that this is one of those, again, where it claims to manage a lot more than what it actually seems like it's managing. And so that's kind of what I wanted to highlight here as well. It says it will use Ascendance, and it will also use Lightning Shield as well as Flame Tongue Weapon. Now, let's go ahead and see, because if you look down here, so if I use it, it does use Lightning Shield, but it doesn't. Oh, it did use Flame Tongue Weapon. Interesting. Okay, so it does use those. All right, so let's see if it actually uses Ascendance here. So looks like so far it's using, you know, it's using our Maelstrom, it's using Lava Burst when it's available. You know, it goes into Lightning Bolt. Flame Shock is on the target. Let's see if it reapplies it quickly. Yep, it did that just fine. But it's not using Ascendance. So I think it's interesting. It says it's going to. It's in the tooltip, but Ascendance is still not being used. Now, some people might prefer that, having more control over it. But at the same time, if you're someone that's like, I'm just playing and I just want to press one button and call it a day, then yeah, it's weird that the tooltip says it uses it, but then it doesn't. I think a lot of people would like to have more control over what the single button assistant does, and I am in full agreement with them. I think that would be nice if you could, at least, here's a checkbox of what we're willing to allow this one button to cover, and then you can uncheck things if you want to and handle those yourselves. especially like cooldowns. I think people would prefer that. So something to think about. But anyway, it is interesting that it's there and it's not using it. Now, also, if you go and you fight multi-targets, what I've noticed here is it did use Earthquake, but it seems to, and I don't know what the meta is or what the rotation is, but it seems to only use Chain Lightning. Like I've got a free Lava Burst here and it's not using it. So that, I think that's interesting. It did use Tempest, of course, that's good. But yeah, it's no longer worrying about Lava Burst. And so I don't know if maybe that's because of my build, maybe it's just the meta, how you're supposed to play it. But yeah, something interesting. So there's a little bit of that there as well. But it is still managing your Maelstrom. But it's just an interesting one. Again, there's just certain instances where the tooltip is saying it's going to use something and then it doesn't. And it's just kind of interesting behavior. So it'll be interesting to see if they adjust the tooltip or if they add the ability in. So that's something to look into. And like I said, there's a lot of that. And now we're going to look at one of the worst offenders with the tooltip mislabeling things. All right, so now we're going to look at Demon Hunter, and this was one of the ones that I had my eye on the most because in live, I feel like Demon Hunter is one of the worst classes to use with the single button assistant. I think Evokers might be even worse, but Demon Hunters are definitely ones that I think I struggle with a lot because of just what's used and what's not used and how finicky and weird it feels. So I was interested to check this out, and I'm sorry. I'm sure a lot of people would want to see the new Devourer, but I don't know enough about that to really analyze it like this. But it's definitely one that I'm looking forward to learning more about. But for now, we're going to look at Havoc. We'll look at the tree here. And again, I'm going to kind of fly through this because I don't want this video to be too long. But yeah, it's a lot more streamlined, I feel, in terms of the talent tree. And just picking talents is a little bit more clear, I think. It's a lot more easy to kind of know what you're getting and what they do. Some things have been simplified, removed, but mostly you're using most of the same abilities. Now, it's interesting because there's a lot in here. Obviously, Blade Dance, obviously Chaos Strike, I-Beam, Fell Rush. This caught my attention. Fell Rush is in here. How is the single button assistant going to use Fell Rush? That ability is a movement ability that doesn't require a target. Fell Blade, and this is actually one of the problematic ones because this normally isn't included. So that's in here. That one makes more sense because you need a target for that one. Of course, Immolation Aura, Metamorphosis as well. And then of course the Hunt. That's another one that was kind of interesting. And then we have Throwglaive, and Vengeful Retreat is also in this tooltip. So that's all in there. And I was interested to test this out to see what was going to happen because that seems kind of crazy. And we start using it, and well, it doesn't seem to do most of those things. Now, personally, I'm glad that it doesn't use Fell Rush or Vengeful Retreat. I don't think I would want it to do that, but it is interesting that it doesn't use the Hunt. It doesn't use Metamorphosis. It also doesn't use Fellblade. Again, I don't know why they're in the tooltip. They were put in there, but they're not included. That's very strange. Also, you can still interrupt I-Beam if you're pressing the button. You know what I need to see is if you hold the button down, if it would interrupt the I-Beam ability. You know what I mean? Because like if you can hold the button down, then you don't have to worry about making a no channeling macro. That could be really nice. Yeah, it didn't interrupt it. So I'm holding the button down and it didn't interrupt it. That's really nice, actually. That makes the holding the button down option a lot more appealing. So there you go. I did not interrupt it that time. So anyway, sorry, live testing. But yeah, this is definitely one of those classes that I would prefer if it would at least use Fellblade because it's such a short cooldown and it's a part of your rotation. I think the Hunt, would be nice as well, but I think that's also one that I could manage. It's got a long cooldown and then Metamorphosis, kind of the same. I could see that going either way, but it's weird, again, that they're in the tooltip and they're not included. So hopefully that's something that can change. But otherwise, I think there's a lot of people that will find the game more approachable. I think that's the most important thing. And I think as long as they add interesting gameplay outside of just your rotation, I think it'll be fine. I think it'll actually make the game better, and not having to rely on some third-party tools to manage it, I think will also be appealing for a lot of people as well. As for the single button assistant, you know, there's some flaws here. There's definitely some tooltip issues, some kinks that need to be worked out, I think. But overall, I think that with a more streamlined class system and talent trees, you know, and the way classes play, I think that in theory, it should mean that the single button assistant works a lot better. I'll also say this, just kind of add this on, you know, when I'm able to, I'm going to test things out with GSE again, because my understanding is that GSE seems to work in the beta. I can't test it though, because I'll be completely transparent with you guys. It's locked behind a Patreon. So I'm going to wait for it to go live in the live version of the game and then start testing it then. Now, with how simple a lot of the classes are, I mean, like, you know, Beast Mastery Hunter, Ret Paladin, even Demon Hunter here, where you're basically just stacking a lot of cooldowns, it might be worth trying out Gnome Sequencer again to see if I can get more damage out of a lot of these classes over the single button assistant, because a lot of the rotations are simplified, and simplicity is where GSE shines. You know, the more cooldown stacking you're doing and the more you can get out of it. Now, I say that from the perspective of somebody who's trying to get one button. I mean, as a visually impaired player, the more simplified I can make the input presses and not have to track things, then the easier it's going to be for people like me, for people that are, you know, limited with mobility or maybe have the use of fewer limbs. For a lot of people, the goal is to have one button, not because we're trying to min-max or, you know, be super amazing or efficient. We're not trying to make the most, you know, optimal macros or whatever. We're just trying to play the game leisurely in a way that is less stressful and more manageable for us. Okay. And so my mindset is accessibility first, damage second. But if I can get more damage out of Gnome Sequencer while also keeping it just as accessible, I might consider that. So that's definitely something I'm going to look into once Midnight goes live and GSE is made available to the public. So that's going to be something fun to check out. But otherwise, we'll see how things go. We're going to cover a lot of SBA, GSE, class guides, everything once this goes live. I'm really looking forward to it. It's going to be fun to dive into a lot of these classes, and I want to see if something makes me laugh as hard as Beast Mastery Hunter did. Just because, wow, that was crazy. But anyway, I hope you guys found this video informative. I had a lot of fun messing around with it and just seeing the different classes and wanted to share my thoughts. So thank you for listening. It's a longer one. I talk a lot, but let me know what you'd like me to cover. Classes, single button assistant, Midnight. I'm all down for it. I'm having a lot of fun in the beta, but let me know. Otherwise, with all that being said, I'll see you guys on the next one.
Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, let me know by clicking that like button, and feel free to share it with your friends so they can enjoy it as well. And if you'd like to see more videos, you can subscribe to the channel and click on the bell icon to be notified as soon as new videos are posted. You can also follow me on Facebook, and if you'd like, you can support my work on Patreon. Links to all that stuff can be found in the description below. This is Kephas. Until next time.